Hi guys, Samantha from Just My Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create this pendant. Now, this was just a test piece that I made to practice, and in the tutorial I'm going to replace this mica shift that we have here with a Skinner blend mica shift, and that's going to be between silver and pearl white primer. And also this cutter is going to be a little bit different, so I'll show you the cutters that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the largest of these cutters, and this part will be a little bit more defined as well. But this is basically what we're going to be making, and I'm going to be showing you how to do a Skinner blend mica shift, how to create this really cool cabochon using alcohol ink pens, how to create this bail, and also how to varnish the entire thing with liquid clay. So let's get started. First off, you're going to need a Skinner blend between silver primer and pearl white primer. Now you can use any brand of clay that you want, but I'm just choosing to use primer today. So I've just got these two triangles together, and I'm sure most of you know how to do a Skinner blend. If not, visit my website justmytutorials.com. In the beginners section I have a tutorial on how to create a Skinner blend if you guys need to check that out. And I'll provide a link to my website. Okay, now you would just create that into a Skinner blend. Okay, so there's our Skinner blend. Nice and even. You want it to be a solid colour like this, if you know what I mean. You don't want these streaks in it. To create a good mica shift, you want something like this. Now that that's done, we'll just put that off to the side for the moment, and we're going to start creating our cabochon for the middle. Okay, and so what you're going to need is a ball of pearl white. And all you want to do is just take a piece and pop it into a ball. Okay, now that's a little too much. We're going to be popping it into a mold, and so you're just going to need how much you need for the mold. So I'll just bring that mold over, and this is the Sculpey mold, and so I'm just going to take enough, and I'm just going to spritz a bit of water in there, then grab that and smush that into the mold. Okay, and if you're wondering what the rumbling is in the background, I'm not sure if you guys can hear it or not, but if you can, there's just a thunderstorm going on outside. It's making a little bit of a noise, so if you're wondering what that is in the background, that is what it is. Okay, so you'll just shave off that top part and pop that out of the mold, and I want you to make about 3 of those, and we'll call them all, because we want to make 3, we want to make backups, because sometimes you can have issues with the liquid clay, and so you want to make a backup or 2. Okay, so I've done 3 of the medium size in here, so you can see that there's a medium, a large and a small. So I've done 3 medium and 3 small. And so these are what we are going to decorate. But before you put the alcohol pens on them, you want to just set them quickly with your heat gun. Now you can bake them, that's definitely an option. And actually it's preferable if you do bake them. So you would want to put these in the oven for half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then when they're baked and cooled, you can you can use your alcohol ink or alcohol pens on them. So I'll go pop these in the oven, and then I'll show you how to create the mica shift in the meantime. Okay, so we'll bring this over, and let me just brush it off quickly. There we go. And what you want to do is you just want to fold it in half. This was run out on my thickest setting, and so by folding it in half, I've just made it a bit thicker. And I'm just brushing off these pieces that accidentally got on it. and then I'm going to brush it, fold it in half again, just like that. Okay, now the goal is that we want to take this Skinner blend and shorten it. So we want it to be this, we want it to be shorter this way and wider this way. So just press gently, and you don't want folds, so flatten out any folds that are forming as you're pressing it in towards itself. And then we can use our roller to roll it out the other way to help encourage it. Okay, so now we've made a somewhat squarish piece. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, there we are. Now we can start creating our mica shift. And what I'm going to be using are just some circle cutters. And so I'm going to be using these Kemper cutters, which are nice and small. And then I'll also be using some cutters that I got from not towards Polymer, okay? Over the Rainbow, that's right. I'll be using those cutters. And so I'll start with the largest one. And we're going to press it into our piece. And you can have a specific pattern if you want. I'm going to go with a specific pattern, but that's completely optional. So just take your pieces and push them into the clay in your desired pattern, and this is going to create our mica shift. Okay, so I've also used a skewer just to press in these spots over here, as you can see. And so now that I'm happy with my pattern, I am going to gently start pressing this together, because you want all of these pieces to come together. So gently start pressing from all sides, and you can pick it up as well. And just gently press together your pieces, and you can also roll it out. And you can see that it goes quite quickly down. Okay, and then you can squish it back together. Your goal is to just get all of these pieces nicely back together into one piece of clay, so it doesn't fall apart when you're slicing it later on, which is what we're going to be doing. Okay, so now I'm just going to squish it back down into my original size that I was happy with before, and then we can start slicing this and forming it into a veneer that we can use later on. Okay, so there we are. Now you want to take that and stick that firmly onto your tile once you've got it into the right shape. I don't want it to be too big, because otherwise I'm going to have trouble slicing it. There we are. Pop that onto my tile and then just gently burnish it on. And then I'm going to bring over my blade and slice. And just keep all of these slices and we'll form a veneer with them. You might be able to hear Kit Kat in the background. And so you can see at these slices, I'm slicing down. So we pressed our cutters in this way. We didn't press them in that way. So you want to slice that way and then flip the slices, because the mica shift will look better. Okay, now just repress that down onto a tile. Sometimes you might need to reshape it and re-squish it down to make sure that it's stuck. and then slice again. You can see the mica shift's quite nice. So I'll just slice as many of those as I can. Okay, so I've cut out enough slices, so I'll bring those all over. And what we want to do is we want to take them and pop them together, just like this, so that we can form a veneer. Now I'm gently stretching them so they fit. Yeah. When I overlap them, I'm being careful how I smooth it out. I'm just popping it all together. I think that I want to be like that. There we go. There we are. So you can see that the mica shift looks really nice. And I'll just attach that last piece down here, which gives us enough room to cut out multiple pieces. Okay, now I'll bring over my roller and just check each time that it is clean, because sometimes you can have little bits on it that you didn't see. And then roll your piece flat. And once you've finished rolling it flat, we can put this on a backing so that we can put it through a pasta machine and even it out. Okay, so I flattened it out as much as I can. Now what I want to do is I just want to cut this in half to make it easier for me to manage. And then pick it up off the tile. And then bring over a sheet of silver that was run out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And pop that on. Okay, and then I'll roll that with my roller first before putting it through a pasta machine. And now this is the backing. So you need two pieces. You need first the one that's going to be the backing, which is this part. And then you need this part, which is going to be the front part. And the front part needs to be thinner than the backing. So this is our backing that I have. So now I'm just going to trim off these excess bits. There we are. Now put that out the way for the moment. We'll bring over this and our backing. And the backing was run out on the middle setting of my pasta machine. And I'll just place that on and roll it out with my roller. There we are. Okay, now I'm just going to trim away this excess bit to tidy it up. Okay, and then I'm going to run that through my second thickest setting. Then I'm going to take it down to my third thickest setting, and that's thin enough. And there we go. So now let me just bring over my cutter, see what it's going to look like. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Okay. So that's all we need for this. And then if I bring over the backing over here, it's also going to look quite nice. I just like to check. Okay, so now I'll go bring those cabochons out of the oven. Okay, so here we are. Now this fun part of the tutorial can begin. So I'll just work with one of the large ones first to show you what we're going to be doing with all of the others. And now I'm going to be using alcohol pens today, but you can use alcohol inks and a very small brush if you don't have any alcohol pens, but you can use alcohol pens, and they're called Little Tipsy, so you can see here. And so those are the ones that I'm going to be using. Now I'm going with a blue theme, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this blue over here, number 63. And now they have a small end and a broad end that you can use. So I'm going to be working with the thin ends. Now the reason I've baked the clay before putting this ink on is because when you put the ink on before they're baked, first off you can't hold it as nicely as I am over here, and so you're going to distort your bead a little bit, and also because the ink just doesn't sit as nicely on it. It absorbs into it. With this you can really sit and have fun with it, and it will stay nice and fresh. The colour will remain nice and bold on the outside, on the clay. If you were doing it on raw clay, it would absorb straight in. So I'm just doing lines, kind of like you would if you were doing seaweed strands. There we go, and I'll just do that with one colour. Then I'll move on to the next one, and I'm going to be using number 64. And again, I'm just going to be doing lines across the entire piece. And now I'm going to show you this entire process because there's different stages throughout it. And now what your goal is to layer these inks until you can't see any more of the pearl white. And it's important that you do pearl white because it's going to make the piece very shiny after you've put the liquid clay on top. Now I'm going to switch to 66. Oops, wrong end. Want the thin end. Now the blues that you start with are going to be your base. And so whichever blue that you want it to be, if you want it to be a greenish blue, light blue, or a dark blue, whichever one you want to be the primary colour in your piece, start with that one. And that's what I'm doing. I want it to be a lightish blue. Okay, now I'm going to move on to 70. And again, I opened the wrong one. I really need to look at this before I open these things. And you can see that one's a bit darker. And now this ink is going to mix with the ink underneath. And it's also going to do what alcohol ink does best. It's going to create these watermarks almost, because it's got a whole bunch of ink lying underneath, which is really nice. And it creates a lovely water effect. Now I'm going to move on to number 72. You can hear the storm outside. And I'm going to be focusing on trying to get these areas that don't have their white covered yet, because we need to cover up all the areas that have white before we can move on to the next bit. Or at least most of the white anyway. There we go. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now we can move on to the next bit, which is going to be spotting. So I'm going to be using number 61. I might just do a few more tentacles, because this is the main part. There we go. And this one's a bit more green, so it's going to add more colour to the piece. Okay. Now I'm going to start adding dots. And I'm not sure if the camera's picking this up in detail. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm just putting dots of colour. Okay, use that colour. Now I'm going to move on to number 71, which is a cobalt blue. And I'm also going to be doing spotting with this one. And now you want to do the spotting after you've got a good layer of ink, because otherwise the spots are going to look too rounded. These ones are going to spread out like you would if you were dotting ink. There we are, almost done. And you can see that I've just painted the edges lightly on the first go around, just because it's important to dot those edges. But there we are. Once you're happy with it and you like the effect that you have, stop, because you can very easily overplay this. So once you're happy with it, leave it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I put that aside, and I'm going to do all of these other ones that I have over here, and maybe make some darker, make some greener, some lighter, and so on. And then I'll show you all of them when they're done, and I'll also show you how to cover them with liquid clay. Okay, so I've finished painting all of the pieces, and so these are 3 that I haven't put liquid clay on yet. And so these are the original ones that we did, and then I did a darker one. And here's what the darker one looks like after you've put the liquid clay on, so you can see it's nice and shiny now. And this is what this one will look like once you put the liquid clay on. And then I did a little green one as well, and you can see the liquid clay looks nice. Now, the reason we've made all of these is because first off I want to make multiple pendants, and secondly because I wanted to do different alcohol effects, and thirdly and most importantly, especially with these ones where we made 3, I just made an extra one, which is basically a dummy for you to start your liquid clay, because the first time you do it you generally mess it up, like I did over here. So you do want to make an extra one just in case you accidentally mess it up, or make a few extra ones. But here are the ones that I did afterwards, and so you can see it much better. So you do want to make a dummy that's going to cover you if you make a mistake. So I'll put those out the way, and I'll start with these. So what you're going to want to do is pour a little pool of liquid clay. Let me zoom out. There we go. Now you'll be able to see better. And then you want to take a brush which is dedicated only for liquid clay, and this is translucent Kato that I'm using. And you want to gently start dabbing the liquid clay on. You don't want to be brushing it on, because that can distort the alcohol ink pattern you have underneath. So just lightly tap it, and I find that that's the best way to avoid distorting your pattern a little bit too much. You're going to distort it to a certain degree, but that's fine because I haven't blended my pattern at all, because I don't want it, I do want it blended a little bit, but the liquid, when I apply the liquid clay, it will do that for me. So you can see I'm just slowly dabbing it. And now the trick is to not put too much of a coat on here. You want a very thin coat of liquid clay. Any areas that are too thick with liquid clay, first off, won't clear up as nicely, and secondly they can cause issues when you're busy curing it with your heat gun. Now you could bake this in the oven before you use the heat gun, but I find that it's just more translucent when you cure it straight from when it's raw. Okay. Now I'm just going to blow on it to help level the liquid clay. And then I'm just going to brush off my brush a bit. And I can see that I have some areas over here where my liquid clay is a little bit too thick. So I'm just going to gently brush that out. And now you can see I'm only covering the top bit, because that's the only bit that you need. Okay. Then when you've done that, you'll bring out your heat gun. and I'm using this one, and I'm going to set it on a low wind speed, the lowest one I have, so it's not blowing this all over the place. And you want to be waving it around, and just watch that your liquid clay doesn't all spill to one edge. So you want to be waving it all around, trying to keep the liquid clay even. There we are. Just pop that down onto the floor, and you'll now be able to see what it looks like. Now this is quite hot, but I do want to bring it up to show you. So you can see it's all shiny and it's gone completely clear. If you see any areas that are slightly foggy, you need to attend to those areas, because that means that the clay is not baked. So you can see now that that one was done much better than this one. This one I smeared the liquid clay a bit and the liquid clay ran off. So that is what you are aiming for. Nice clear coat. Now if you don't want to do this with the liquid clay or anything, that's fine. You can use Varathane, but then you need to varnish it after you've assembled your bead. Okay, so I'm now going to go and coat these. Okay, so I've finished all of my pieces. That one that I messed up, I managed to recover by peeling off the liquid clay and then repainting it with some green. And so I've now got 6 pieces that are all going to work. Now, we can start with our pendants. So I'll put those off to the side. And I'll bring over the pendant. Now this is the largest cutter in this set, and I'll provide a link to this set as they are available on my Etsy shop. And what we're going to do first is we're going to bring over our backing, which was rolled out on the thickest setting, and we're going to cut a piece from it. Okay. There we go. So that's what it looks like. I'll just put that off to the side for the moment. Then we'll bring over our other one, which was rolled out on our middle setting, I do believe. And we will also cut out a piece from there. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to decide the size of our cabochon in the middle. So do we want it that size, or do we want it that size? That is entirely up to you. I think I'm going to make it this size, and so I'm going to just pop it somewhat in the middle so I can figure out where it needs to be. And let me see this pendant over here. What we are going to do is we are going to cut out around it. Now I'm just going to mark where it is with just a little ding over here and a little ding over there, so that I know how wide it is. But what we want to do is we want to start cutting out, but you don't want to cut out too much, because you want to almost cage this cabochon in. So you want to make a mark of where its widest point is, and you don't want to go past that point, you want to go a little under that. So if I pop that here, you can see that's not going to fit, and that's exactly what you want. So just work out what you want. And I want this a little bit more pointed. Okay. And so you'll just play with this until you're happy with how it looks. I'm almost done. I just want to do this last little bit. There we go. Okay. Then just smooth out that ding while you have the trance. And just smooth out the entire bead. And then bring over your backing. And now remember, the nice part is going to be the back. So you want to flip it so it's the silver side that we're looking at. And you want to position this cabochon in the middle. Move it a little down. There. Then bring over your blade and gently pick that up. Now this bit can be a little delicate, but you want to place this on the outside and you want it to get it to touch the edges. If it overlaps a little bit, that's fine, you can fix that. This bit's a little delicate. Okay. Now I'm going to just gently smooth. And now I use the largest cutter for this. Now I'm going to go down one cutter and cut it out, so that way I get nice clean edges and everything sits together happily. Okay, I just need to position the cutter there. Then you'll cut that down here and move that out the way, and that way you can make sure that your piece is nice and symmetrical. Now you can see that compared to this one, this part over here is a little wide. And so I'm going to be making multiple pendants, some with this bit quite small, some with it big like I have done over here. And so I'm going to show you multiple pieces when this is done. So now what you want to do is you just want to gently smooth out all of these edges and make it all nice and finished off. And just tend to these edges, make sure that they're all good. Got a little hair there that I want to get rid of. There we go. And I'm just gently smoothing, because I don't want to have to smear this. So if I can get these edges all smooth, I won't have to do anything about them other than sand them a bit. Okay, and then we'll pick that up. And there you can see that the back's all nice. So just gently round these edges, because I'm in favour of rounded edges, and so you'll just gently tap your finger on them to get them just slightly rounded. And there's what it looks like so far. Okay, now I'm just going to clean up over here, and then you would want to make the bail. Before we make the bail, I want to make a few more of these pieces. Okay. So here are the pendants that I have made. And now some of them are larger than others, some are smaller. I've made a variety of sizes. I've actually made 2 of each size. There you go. So here's that other one that you can't really see all that well. Just pop that over there. But those are the ones that I've made, and I'm quite happy with them. They look really nice. I love the skinner blend. As you can see with this one, there is no skinner blend in it, and so the skinner blend adds just a little bit of interest to it. This one also, you can see that the alcohol ink cabochon in the middle isn't as interesting as the one that is in these ones, because these ones the lines are more defined, the dots are more defined, while this one's a lot more blurry, and so that's quite nice. Now we are ready to add that bail at the top, and I think I'm going to name not this project in of itself, but the actual design that I'm using to create these pendants. So the design idea of this kind of arrow shaped pendant along with this curved bail, I think it would serve well to be called maybe a bull's head pendant. Kind of looks like that, so you could use it in a tribal essence. So anyway, we want to start making our bails now. So what you want are some sheets of your mica shift, and I had some left, and so I took them and I popped them on a sheet of clay that was run out on the middle setting of my pasta machine, and then ran it out until it was on the middle setting to create something like this. Then, if I can find it, here we are, I trimmed it down so that it's a nice square piece to work with. So this is what we're going to cut our bails with. So I'll bring over a skewer, which is what we're going to wrap our bails around. I'm just going to flip this upside down and pop the skewer there. And I'm going to use my firm blade for this. I'm just going to cut out that. And then I will wrap the clay around the skewer. Now the point of the skewer is that this clay shouldn't really stick to the wood all that badly, whereas with metal you would have to bake it before you could get off. This one you want to be able to remove the wood in skewer. So preferably make your bail on a mandrel that's made from wood, or just a wooden skewer will work just fine. So I cut that. Now I'm busy folding it over to mend up that seam. Just like this. Okay, then I will roll it against the tile, and now what that's going to do is it's also going to loosen this clay from the skewer, as you can see. I'm just going to stretch it out on the skewer to keep that thickness even. And I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to trim off this excess so that I get a bail that is the right length for my liking. There we are. Okay, then I'll just remove that from the skewer, and you can see it slides off really easily. Rolling is definitely important. It helps remove it, helps unstick it. Now I've made a few bails already, and at multiple lengths. There's no specific length, just I've made a few. Now I'm going to bring over my largest pendants, which are going to get the longest ones. So out of these, I'd say these are the longest ones. And then that one's thin, but it's long. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and I'm gently going to curve it while I attach it. And now before we do this, actually, what we should do is we should put it on a tile that we're going to bake it on. And so I'm going to bake it on a piece of paper so that the backings don't get all upset with me. And so a piece of paper that I like to bake it on is one that I have already used to leach clay, so that it's not going to absorb any of the oils in my piece, because I don't want anything leaching, because that would just be problematic. So let me just move these out of the way. There we go. And lay that down. Okay. Then I'll bring over the pendant that I want to use and my thing. And now what you want to do is you want to look for the seam, which you will be able to see, and position that so that it is sitting against the pendant, so that you can't see it. And now you really do have to be careful to get this symmetrical. So let's see. I'll twist it around and see if I am happy with it. See if it's symmetrical. Okay, and then you just gently want to give it a curve. Okay, then you want some bacon bond. And I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit onto the tile over here. And I'm just going to bring over my blade. And I just want to attach just a little bit there. And this will just add a little bit of extra security while it is baking. Now we are going to be using liquid clay as a varnish, and so this will get secured more later on, but I just want something that's going to secure it quite a bit now while it's baking. So I'm actually going to bring over my brush to help with that I used for the liquid clay before, and brush that into place. Okay. And then what you do is you do that for all your other pendants. Pop them in the oven for a full hour. Must be a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, or if you're using a different brand, that brand's recommended temperature. And then after that I'll show you how to varnish them. Okay, so these are all out of the oven and these pieces are holding nicely. But I do want to put one last thing on them before we can sand them and varnish them. We put the liquid clay on the front here, so it's created a really nice bond. But on the back here we couldn't exactly flip it, and so this bit is a little bit loose, so it can flip and it's not very strong. And putting the liquid clay on as a varnish just isn't really going to cut it, and it's quite weak at the moment. So we want to put a bit of bacon bond over here, bake it for half an hour, and then we can get to sanding them. So all you do, let me just pop these out of the way. I'm so happy with how it turned out, look really nice. I'll bring over the bacon bond, and I'm just going to smoosh it a little bit over here. There we are. And I'll bring over this brush, and this is my liquid clay dedicated brush because it's a bit of a mess and I can't really use it for anything else. There we are. Grab some liquid clay and insert it into that gap. And just make sure that you do a good job with this and fill in that gap so that it will have a nice strong bond over there. It's already got a pretty good bond because you baked the two pieces while they were raw and put the liquid clay there, but this will just make sure that it's perfectly strong. And then you would bake that on your piece of paper again, and what I'm doing is I'm just taking my finger and smearing it so that I can bake it face down like that onto the paper. And I'll do that with all of these beads, bake them for half an hour, and then we can finish them off. Okay, so all our pieces are out of the oven, as you can see. I just want to bring them all over for you to see what they look like. So those are our big ones, and these are our small ones. And I'm so happy with how they've turned out. So you can see that depending on how big your cabochons are, they're going to be looking a little bit different. So anyway, now what we want to do is we want to sand them. So I'm going to bring over my 400 grit polishing paper and I'll start to sand. I'll just move these out of the way. And now I've got a pad of them because I like to have a cushion to rest this on while I sand. And I'll sand from my 400 all the way up to my 8000, and you want to try to just sand this mica on the outside, not the donut. You want to be very careful not to sand the donut. And now the goal here is to get it all nice and smooth, because let's say you didn't want to coat this with liquid clay, you could just put Renaissance wax on it now. So if you don't want to coat your piece with liquid clay, just continue doing what I'm doing here and just skip the next step that we'll be applying after this, because I'm going to be showing you how to varnish this with liquid clay, but I also want to leave some of them without liquid clay so that I give them a little less of a glossy finish, and that way it will make this thing stand out quite a bit. So just sand it from your 400 and sand all of your mica clay areas, not your little cabochon in the middle, from your 400 all the way up to your highest grit, which in my case is an 8000. And when we're done with that, I can show you how to varnish it with your liquid clay. Okay, so all my pieces are sanded, and so you can see that they have a light sheen to them. But now what I want to do is I want to coat them in liquid clay. So I just want to show you the difference between the ones that are coated in liquid clay and the ones that aren't. So you can decide which ones you want to coat and which ones you don't want to coat, and if you do and if you don't want to. But it will definitely bring out the pearlescent in the clays, and it will just create quite a bit more of a statement. So I've already done 3 so that I can practice for you to make sure that I have my technique perfect to show you, because sometimes the first one never turns out right. Kind of like when you cook pancakes, the first one never really turns out very well. So anyway, I've got some translucent Kato over here, and I've got my brush of liquid clay, and what I'm going to do is I'm first going to start smearing or brushing a very thin coat of liquid clay over the top. It needs to be very, very thin, otherwise it's going to cause issues when you're using the heat gun. So just brush on a very small amount. And actually I forgot to do something quickly. Before you start coating it with liquid clay, I apologise because I forgot to do what I was supposed to do. What you want to do is you want to take a piece of wire and you just want to thread that through the bail like that. And this is just going to give you a handle later on when you have the liquid clay, and also when you're heat gunning, because you can't lie this flat on the tile, so you need to hold it because we're going to be brushing the entire thing in one go. And so your hands need to be out of the way when you're applying heat to this, because otherwise you're going to get very badly burnt hands. And anyway, since we're coating the entire thing, you'll mess up some of the liquid clay. So the wire will provide a nice handle later on. So I'm just busy brushing the entire thing, and you want to go nice and thin, and the thinnest, you want to pay special attention to this end here, which is where the liquid clay tends to go or kind of drip down when you're busy brushing it on. So the thinnest section needs to be over here. But you really do need to just make sure that you don't apply too much liquid clay. Okay, then you'll do the sides and the back and the bail, and just paint on a small amount of liquid clay. Okay, so the next step I can't do next to the tile because I can't show you exactly what I'm doing very well on the tile. So let me just position that piece where I want it. There we are. So I'm going to hold it like this. I've got my heat gun over here, and I'm going to have it on a low setting, and I'm going to start heating. Okay, and then you will plunge it into cold water, and then after it's set, slide the wire out from your bail, and this is what it will look like. So you can see that it definitely goes a lot more shiny and a lot more interesting. Now, an alternative to this, it might be a little difficult, but you could definitely try it, is if you're having a bit of trouble with the liquid clay, because it is a bit of a tricky thing to get right, is to use something like UV resin. And I'll bring over a few examples. Now these resins will set under a UV light, and so they all set a lot quicker than the traditional ones. And so you can give these ones a try instead of the liquid clay if you want to. I haven't got a UV light yet that is the right wattage, so I haven't been able to try these out, but I have seen lots of other people that have tried them out and they work really well. So I really need to get the right UV lamp because I can't buy it offline, so it's a little bit of a problem. But if you're having trouble with the liquid clay, these are definitely an option. You'll basically just use the exact same method that I used for the liquid clay, except that instead of setting it with a heat gun, you would pop it under the UV lamp that you're trying to use, and you would twist it around just to make sure that everything gets coated properly. So you'd have to play around with that, but it is definitely something that you can consider. Okay, so now I'm going to go coat the other beads, and then I'll show you what they all look like at the end. Okay, so I'm finished all of these pieces, and so I'll just bring them all over. Those are the large ones, and here are small ones. Just move them so you can see all of them at once. And there we are. Quite like them. I've decided they almost have a medieval sort of feel to them, kind of like a sword in the stone feel, so I'm a bit in a dilemma on what I should call it. I'm thinking of calling it a jewel of the ocean, but I'm not completely sure whether I'm going to call it that or not. But anyway, those are all of the ones that I have completed, and so now I'm just going to show you how to string one, and really it's just going to be a very simple stringing technique. You can pop Acuflex through here, you can pop cord through here, anything you want, but today I'm just going to use a simple rubber cord since it looks quite nice on it. So I'll just pop that rubber cord through, and this is a pre-made rubber necklace that I have. And it's nice because it's really easy to use, and sometimes the Acuflex that I use just isn't thick enough to stand up to some of these pendants. There we are, fit that through, bring over the clasp, and pop that on. There we are. And there we are. It's really simple, but it looks quite effective when worn. I've already checked it to see what it looks like, and I'm really quite happy with how it looks. You can see the back is nice and shiny, and it just looks really nice. So you could string the others on rubber cord or not, it's completely up to you, but I think it looks really nice on the rubber cord. You could string it on, let's see, you could string it on Acuflex, multiple strands. You could string it on leather. Leather would probably look quite nice actually now that I think about it. You could string it on a really thin type of kumihimo. You could string it on a plait. You could string it on just a plain piece of cord. You could have silk strands coming through it. There's lots of things that you could do with it, so play around with your stringing type, but basically I just think that it looks nice on a plain piece of cord so that the pendant really stands out. And so that's basically it for today's tutorial, and so I do hope that you enjoyed it. I really did enjoy showing you these pendants. I've been holding it in the back for a little while, practicing it to make sure that I got it right for you, and so I'm really happy with how they all turned out. This one's actually one of my favourites because it just happens to be that the colours that I used here really remind me of a stone. I'll see if I can go find the stone quickly to show you what I mean, and I'm pretty sure it's Amazonite that I'm talking about, but I'll go double check. Okay, and here's the stone, and I was correct, it is Amazonite that I was reminded of. So this one's a little bit too blue, as I wasn't actually going for it, but it does kind of look like that, so you might want to go and have a look at some gemstone photos and see what you can do with the alcohol ink pens. I might explore a little bit more into this and see what I can make, because I really like how that looks. So anyway, I think I'm going to call these medieval jewels, because I just think it it really just reminds me of some sort of medieval European sort of style, so I think that's what I'm going to call them. And so anyway, I do hope that that tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know, as I always love hearing your comments. It's very encouraging, and please do send in photos of what you do using this tutorial, as it's quite a fun tutorial and there's many different ways that you could interpret it. I mean, you don't necessarily have to do the cabochons. You could just do this whole backing a little bit of a different colour to create a bezel maybe. You could maybe do a different shaped cabochon, maybe an oval or a square, or a teardrop would look quite interesting. And this kind of rocky, craggy thing that we cut out here, you maybe want to make it a specific shape. Maybe you want to cut out a circle specifically or a teardrop specifically to make it a little bit more precise. Maybe you want to change the shape of the pendant. Maybe you want to leave out the bail or change the shape of the bail. Maybe you want to change the outside over here that we use. So there's many different ways that you guys can play around with it. So I do encourage you guys to go and play with it. It's such a lot of fun. I'll probably be revisiting this design later on to see what I can do else with it, as it's such a fun design. And so I do hope that you picked up a bunch of tips in here, and I hope that you had fun, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.